Hello, PriceSmart. Welcome to our podcast, At the Club, a communication channel with our employees, where we will share valuable information, fascinating topics, and inspiring stories that you haven't heard before, keeping us connected on a whole new level. Join us on this journey and discover everything happening at the club. PriceSmart Inc. provides this podcast for general information. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are the personal views of the podcasters and their guests, and not the views, policies, or opinions of PriceSmart. PriceSmart makes no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. This podcast might contain forward-looking statements concerning PriceSmart's anticipated plans, revenues, and related matters. These statements are subject to risks and uncertainties that could cause actual results to differ materially, including the risks detailed in PriceSmart's most recent annual report on Form 10-K and other filings with the SEC, which are accessible on the SEC's website at www.sec.gov.
I feel really honored to get to do it, and thank God I like what I do. So the first thing I'd like to share with our team is thank you. We have a wonderful team of people that are incredibly committed to what they do. It's been a great year, and we have more coming. One of the first things I did was working on PriceSmart.com and like merchandising and buying products, and we're gonna have learnings and we're gonna have knocks along the way. But we gotta keep our eye on the ball, stay focused, have fun, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter for sure. Welcome to the At the Club podcast, PriceSmart's employee podcast. I'm usually your host, David Price. Today I'm actually the guest. So I'm sitting on the other side of the table today. This is our last episode of the season. I'm doing air quotes for those that are air listening or not, that don't have the video. But it's our last episode of the season. These seasons, we aim for them to run around our fiscal year. And so this is the August episode of our fiscal year 2025. And it's been a really great year. We've talked to a lot of different people. I've learned a ton. And today our production team thought it'd be a good idea for me to be interviewed. So I better be quiet because I'm going to hand the microphone, not literally, we both have mics, but I'm going to hand it over to John Hildebrandt, our president and COO of PriceSmart, because he's going to be interviewing me. But don't forget to follow us on YouTube and Spotify. We love to hear from you. And I'd love to hear your comments. So please make a comment down below or hit us up at our email.
So David, thank you for the introduction, and I'm really happy and honored to be here today to close off this season with you as our guest. So we're going to take a few moments to talk to David Price, our incoming CEO, get a little background from David, in his early years, and then I have a few questions that I'm going to ask David. So we look forward to this, and let's get started. David, you began your career back in 2016, correct?
With the company, yeah.
With the company, yeah. And as I read, because I wasn't exactly in tune with each position you held up until this point, but I understand you started as a data analytics associate.
Working for Lupita.
With Lupita.
Yeah, with our SVP of financial planning and analysis.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Wow. Oh, well, humble beginnings. I mean, that's great.
It was awesome.
It's great.
Yeah.
So obviously, over the years, you moved around, got exposed to different areas of the company. So in 2022, I understand that I don't understand. You did. You transitioned into a strategic corporate role as our executive vice president and chief of staff to interim CEO Robert Price, your dad. And you were elected to the company's board of directors as well back then. In August of 23, David was promoted to executive vice president of chief transformational officer and overseeing enterprise innovations, IT modernization, PriceSmart.com, and digital payment solutions, which are key pillars in the company's growth and strategy. So again, David, it's been 10 years, and now you're ready to take on a significant role. A very significant role.
Absolutely.
So we're
very humbling role.
Well, yeah, okay. That's right. Yeah. So I'm going to start off with some questions that we've prepared. So, regarding the PriceSmart legacy, starting with your grandfather, Saul, and your father, you're about to become the third generation in your family to lead the company. So how does it feel to take on this responsibility?
I try not to think about it too much in terms of the greater context of generational continuity, because it's a little overwhelming in some ways. But on the other hand, I feel really honored to get to do it, and thank God I like what I do. I think I'd feel actually, when I was younger, I used to feel a lot of tension over whether or not I should work with the business. I remember I have a very vivid memory of sitting with a friend on the grass. I was visiting a good friend at UC Davis when I was in college, and I have a vivid memory of sitting with him on the grass talking about this very topic, whether I wanted to work for the family company and what I would do and if it was right for me, and that I felt pressure on myself. I would put pressure on myself to do that. And I wasn't sure I wanted to do it. And for years, I felt tension about that because I felt a responsibility to be involved in some fashion, but I wasn't sure I wanted to. And at this point, it's really amazing how things evolve and change, and you can't ever really predict how things are going to happen. I mean, a lot in life is luck, and some things happen for reasons, and, it's hard to put it all together. But I think at this point, I feel very clear that this is exactly what I want to be doing right now. And there's no other thing I'd rather be doing. I mean, I'm super blessed to be able to wake up every day and be really excited about what I get to work on at PriceSmart. I get to work with great people. I get to carry on the legacy of this business and the several businesses that Saul and Robert founded before PriceSmart, and a model that stood the test of time. And I always say adds value everywhere it goes if executed properly. And so we get to do that and provide great jobs for people across the region, and continue building a business that provides value for members, employees, and shareholders. So for me, I mean, shoot, I'm lucky. I get to work on something wonderful. I get to build something.
Well, that's great. I mean, and I can understand coming from the legacy of Saul, obviously, who created this business, and then your dad who took it and took it to another level. I mean, there's a big shoes to fill, and I can understand where when you were younger, you were thinking maybe is this what I want to do? Is this not what I want to do? But I think we're all happy that you've come full circle, and you've embraced the business, and you're passionate, and you're ready to take it on and take us into the future. So again, I want to congratulate you on.
Thank you, John.
that.
Thank you, John. Yeah, there are big shoes to fill, but so many lessons. And I always say, like, it's our company, right? It's not like, well, it has our name in the first part of our brand. Like, it really is. First, it's a public company, but besides that, like, I really feel that the ethic of the business and the way that the employees feel like is a feeling of shared ownership. And that's really something I like about the company. And I feel like I can kind of deliver on the values that are important to me in terms of, like, operating with respect, ethics, integrity, and doing something that makes an impact on the world in a positive way, while also doing well financially for our shareholders and our employees and so on. So I think it just checks a lot of boxes.
No, that's great. And again, a lot of those words you spoke about, they speak to our culture. They
Right.
really do. So
Exactly.
that's very good. So, okay, question number 2. So what are some of the most valuable lessons you've learned from your father and grandfather about leadership and about PriceSmart's mission?
Yeah, it's funny. I was reflecting in preparation for this discussion, and the first thing that came to mind was to never just take things at face value. I think if there's one thing about Saul and about Robert I can think of, is that they're like Saul was and Robert is just totally committed to being a contrarian and never accepting things on the first shot.
Well said.
He just is, and it can be a pain. It could just be a pain. It's really difficult. But I'm always amazed at the quality of the results where we end up arriving once we just churn and argue and work on something, where we end up, and it's all done in good faith and a commitment to trying to do the best that we can do as a company or as an individual, and a commitment to really working hard, producing an excellent result, commitment to execution. So I think there's a lot in there that I've observed in him, and then early memories of Saul that speak to some of how we aim to do things as a company. And the retail, and certainly club retail, in a business like PriceSmart, is a lot about execution. I mean, you got to have excellent execution in the warehouse clubs. You got to have excellent execution in the supply chain up to the DCs, and then moving up from that, you got to have excellent execution in the buying and all the other support functions, our .com, everything needs to be executed at a good level because it's a team sport. And so that requires a high level of trust and a high level of commitment to working in good faith with others in other departments, so teamwork. So there's a lot of pieces there that I've learned through the years, and I can think about lessons also from like childhood, right? Like the experiences I had around making friends and maintaining friendships and guidance I got from my dad at a moment in history where when I reflect back on it, I can think, oh, like I understand that I'm starting to draw a lot more connections, especially now, becoming a father and thinking about, how I'm learning and exactly. It changes everything.
Yeah. No, you know, if you don't mind,
Yeah, go ahead.
Your comment about your dad and, your grandfather, and sometimes the frustration and I've been blessed to have been working very close with your dad over the last 2.5, almost 3 years, and it's been a great experience for myself. And to your point, at times you get very frustrated, but in the end, it was your dad just trying to force you to think and look at things a different way, and finally draw your conclusions. But not until you really, like you said, wrung it out. You looked at it every which way you possibly.
Got to do your homework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it's again it can be frustrating, but I think in the end it's all done for the right reasons.
Absolutely. And I think for leaders in our company, if you're a manager or leading a small team or a big team, it's up to you to uphold that commitment to like I always say like taking it to the mat, like turning over every stone, like really doing the work. And we do it in the interest of our members. We do it in the interest of our fellow team members and of the shareholder.
No, I think it's a great philosophy to continue on.
Yeah.
So, okay, very, very good. Thank you. Next question. You've grown up with PriceSmart, not just as a company, but as part of your family's story. Do you have a favorite memory from your early years that connects you to the company in a meaningful way?
I can recall really specifically the very first memory of PriceSmart that I had interacting with the PriceSmart, and it was the opening of Escazú. And I think in a close proximity to that, we opened something in Panama, if I'm not mistaken. Because I remember I went on a trip with folks that I'm not even going to say their names because they're not around anymore. Maybe it was Brisas, but I remember we hit a couple different locations and openings, and it was my first real interaction with a club opening, and I have memories of being in Latin America and the kind of the feelings at the food and the hotel and going to the club and meeting the employees. And then later on, those are like early memories, almost like snapshots I have from, I was probably like 8 years old or something. And later on, I got the opportunity in college to spend part of a summer, staying with one of our employees and his wife, who works with Aprender Crecer in Costa Rica. And I got to work some with our club manager at Escazú at the time, who's now our DC manager there. Yeah, exactly. And so it built on that early experience I had now living there. And now thinking back on then, being 18 years old and was super shy, I didn't feel comfortable speaking Spanish at all, even though I spoke Spanish. I was just kind of coming out of my shell and whatever. But the experience was really a positive experience and always left a soft spot for me in my heart for Costa Rica also.
Yeah. No, I can understand that.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that all of our folks in San Diego and Miami haven't had that same opportunity.
Yeah.
I feel blessed myself having lived in Panama and Costa Rica for about 5 or 6 years, because you're right. It's a treasured experience.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Really, it's a motivator. It's a motivating
totally.
factor. You can get to see, the product of the hard work that everyone puts forth.
Totally. So one of the things that I really love that I think we're doing more and more of, certainly in our office in Miami, but also in San Diego, as we move into our new office soon. By the time this is out, we're going to be imminent to moving. Think a lot about like trying to celebrate the culture from our markets in our offices. And what's great about Miami is like we have so many employees now in our Miami team who've come either from the countries and moved up, or from the countries and we hired them in Miami. And so it's like this amazing kind of quilt of cultures in our. It's awesome. Yeah. It's totally cool. And so I think the more from our support offices like Miami and San Diego, the more we can celebrate those cultures and really make connections, even if it's not physically, it's hard to get everyone down, the better, because we're ultimately, at the end of the day, we're servicing our employees and members that are living in each of our 12 countries where we operate.
Oh, okay. Well, those are good memories. So,
Yeah.
all right, we're gonna move into leadership and transition readiness. So,
Okay.
and before we get there, as you move into, you're transitioning to this new role of your CEO, I wanted to ask you, are there any CEOs that come to your mind that, ones that I would say you admire or that you would possibly take away some of their traits and emulate them? And if so, who might they be?
This is fun. This wasn't on the list. I
But
like
it
it.
is a-
I have people that I look up to for different reasons, for different aspects. Certainly Saul and Robert. There's elements of the way that what I observed and what I know of Saul, I was quite young. He passed away in 2009. And at the time I wasn't as in tune with his approach, but I certainly had a lot of opportunity to watch Robert. But there's others too, in terms of, Robert is a founder CEO. So he's an entrepreneur. He's creative. He never stops at the first obvious answer. I mean, he's never settled. He's very much that type, right? And then there's other kinds of CEOs out there too. There's like the ones that are just excellent operators and super disciplined and really excel in that. There's others that are more transformational, and more focused around innovation and more aggressive growth. So there's a few that come to mind. One who we always like talk about this kind of contrarian relationship we have with Walmart, but I do really admire Doug McMillon and what he's done at Walmart. He is an impressive individual, and he started, in merchandising, if I'm not mistaken, and his professional and personal story through the growth at Walmart is something I think is really admirable, and it's impressive, and he's done a hell of a job with the trajectory of that company. And while they do things totally differently than how we do things and we compete, it doesn't mean I can't look up to how, some of the ways that and respect. So that's one. Bill McDermott at ServiceNow and his track record at SAP, as well as with the company at ServiceNow. And we've now, we're a customer of ServiceNow, but we've had an opportunity to start, at least over email, developing a little bit of a relationship. I'm going to be able to meet with him, in a few months. And I love what he does because he, at least, from what I can see from my vantage point, is like just totally committed to optimism. And that's something I really, really like. And about people can get better, people can learn, you can do it, we can build something amazing, like kind of this wild, ambitious, hard, hairy goal out there. He has this commitment to that, which really works well for technology. And he's had a really impressive track record with his companies. There's of course Yvon Chouinard in his year at Patagonia and his commitment to his values. So there's different pieces of individuals, and how they've handled different things that are really things I kind of look up to and admire.
I know this wasn't on the script, but I appreciate the insight because I think it speaks to your values and what motivates you.
Yeah, let me give one or two more. So the other one I wanted to call out is, I don't know Ron Vakris. I'd like to meet him, but I know I've gotten the chance to meet Craig Jelinek, and we had the opportunity to have lunch not that long ago, and he really made a great impression on me, and his story and his run track record at Costco is really impressive. And his personal story, his professional growth story, is just another one where he came from very humble beginnings at the company and then went on to become CEO of the company and just added a tremendous amount of value. And he's just a humble and really smart, sharp guy. So it's another one that I really enjoyed.
He was filling some big shoes too.
Big shoes after Jim.
Yeah.
Right, founder CEO. So he's just impressive what he also delivered on.
Great. It's a good call out. It's a great call out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you for that insight.
That's a good question. I like it.
So, again, in regards to the leadership and the transition readiness, what excites you the most about your new role as our CEO?
So there's a few different pieces that I'm excited about. Certainly, I spoke about it earlier, but I think the continuity in connection to our family history and being able to carry forward that legacy brings a lot of meaning to me personally. And so having meaning in work, be it big or small things, I think is like what else can I ask for? So I'm really excited about being able to continue kind of developing that aspect of myself. And now in the CEO role, it's a little different. I mean, I've been running a division in one of our fastest growing businesses in PriceSmart.com. And so this is now, I have a different point of view. So I'm excited about that point of view and the element of creativity that's involved in it, and the element of continued development of myself as an individual, continuing to be better, to learn, to just be a better professional, a better person. I mean, that's something I really like. I like to exercise. I'm an athlete. I'm into meditation. I'm always trying to like just kind of tinker with myself as a human and just get better and better. So I feel like the CEO is like, oh, it's going to be a challenge too, right? And so I think the last piece, I'm really excited about building something. And I think PriceSmart is in this interesting moment in its history. And I've said it before, but I'll say it for audiences now, where we're going to be 30 years old in October of 2026. And so we have now the opportunity, while we're going to be 30, I almost feel like we're just starting. So we have this kind of opportunity to have a fresh start. And so I'm really excited about infusing some feeling of an entrepreneurial spirit into the company and trying to give us the room to be creative, to be agile, nimble, to take smart risks, and to really reaffirm the culture and the foundation. I think it's really important for me going forward that we stay closely connected to our core fundamentals. So we have to both, I know, later on we might talk about this, but we have to both anchor to the fundamentals while also pushing forward. We have to do both. So yeah, I don't know. I'm excited. I think it's gonna be a good time. I'm ready to go. Let's go.
It's interesting is when we close off this interview, and I'm going to close with a few closing thoughts. You took the words right out of my mouth. We'll get to that later. So, okay. What key lessons have you learned during your preparation to now step into the role of CEO?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I'm happy that we had a transition. I think one of the things we ask of our people is to be building their next successor in their area. We try to promote from within, and to do that, we have to be teaching and developing people. And so that takes time. And so I'm really grateful that we had some time, because every day as I move closer to my start date, I think mentally I'm already kind of there, but like I'm realizing all the things I don't know about all sorts of stuff. I mean, there's the variety of things that happen, that occur. Some are predictable and some are total surprises. But I've been spending a lot of time on real estate, a lot of time on assessing more complex business cases for our major investments, which are typically real estate in some fashion. So that's been a big focus of mine through the transition. So I've been thinking a lot about that. I've been thinking a lot about how to not bury myself in this role. I think every CEO runs the risk, actually any person that's running a large team, but certainly the CEO, you could work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you still won't get everything done. It's impossible. So the question is, how do you set up an organization and a team where the right things are getting done? And I've been Dan Martell, can't remember the name of the book, but I need to be focused on the things that really only I can do, and make sure that the team is doing the things that they can do, and that we're all aligned in the right priorities and focuses and goals as a company in the right order, so we can deliver on the things we set out to do. And that requires me to know what not to do. And so that's been another area where I've been focused a lot the last few months.
So, and that's a great observation, and that would be my 2 cents advice for you coming into this role is this is not a sprint for sure. It's a marathon, and so I think you're looking at it in the right fashion. And again, there's always, first up to your earlier comment, we learn every day. We continue to learn. I've been doing this for a long time, and rarely a day goes by that I don't pick up on something that I didn't think of or didn't look at in a certain way, and it's called learning. And so that's going to continue. That's exciting.
Yeah.
But again, it's the future is very bright, but it's a long path, and the cadence is important.
Absolutely. And you can't let it take over your life either, because you gotta
very, very critical.
I think that's another message for our team is just, we have many young parents, and some that are taking care of their parents, and we have hobbies and things. And at least for me, like there's going to be sprints in the work, but in general, it's a marathon, and so just making sure we don't burn out, fizzle out, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good answer there. So business vision and priorities. And I made a little comment to myself, in an extremely fast-paced business environment, where technology, I'll say i.e. AI, is changing and enhancing the business landscape. Having said that, and then moving to our question, which is, in a company with such a strong family legacy, how do you balance honoring the past with driving innovation and change? Again, in a world that is changing daily.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's easy to find the points where there may be conflict or something between how we did things and how we will do things. But I think why we do something, I try to focus on the why as the fundamental of what it is that we're aiming to do and the core principles of the business model. And I think that those core principles should remain the same. And how we deliver on them should dramatically change as we can leverage technology. And we may find other revenue opportunities and things, but they have to, at our core, we're a membership business, and we use the membership to support our pricing and income, but really to support better pricing. We have to run efficient operations so that we can have low costs in our supply chain and our warehouse clubs without compromising on how we pay people and how we provide benefits. And we want to have an environment where people can grow and where employees have a great experience. Technology is a part of that too, because technology can help make our employees more productive and to be spending more time on higher value add work and less time on things that could be automated. So that's a piece. We have differentiated product mix, a reduced SKU mix, club packs. I mean, we're an item business, and that's an important piece. We're going to always be an item business. We're not the everything store. We're not more is more. We're a less is more, right? And so the intelligent loss of sales is a very critical piece of our business. And then finally, we have to have a great member experience. And so being an item merchant, which we should be leveraging technology there, and having a great member experience, more and more of that relies on technology too. So we've been talking a lot at the company around the core importance of data, having really usable, well-governed, accessible data that's secure, of course, item data, member data, transaction data, vendor data. Did I say member data? Member data. Yeah. All those pieces so that we can use them to do the different tasks and to improve experiences for employees, for members, to be more efficient, to be more productive. So I think technology has all those applications, and I don't see any of them being contrary to our business model. I see them being synergistic. We just have to be smart in how we make it happen.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree. I mean, totally agree. Okay, so it's the company culture and our people. And again, understanding our roots, date back to 1976.
I guess 54 before that, if you want to go way back.
Yeah, back to,
FedMart.
I was just thinking Price Club, but going back to FedMart, you're absolutely right, 54 years. So, thinking about understanding our roots and how far they date back and, as well as our culture, it brings up a good question here, which is, what is the kind of culture that you want to promote at PriceSmart?
Yeah. Yeah, we did a cool kind of question and answer thing. I think you remember that we had employees write in and ask questions of us, and we videoed it, and they were really hard questions. I was really impressed with our employee base for those that participated because the questions were really thoughtful, and someone was like, dang, can I re-record that? And one of them was, how do you invest and grow a culture across a company so broad with so many different literal cultures and geographies within the company and operating in so many different regions and so on. And I think the way that we operate consistently is not through processes, it's not through rules or whatever, it's through culture, right? And it comes down, culture is just fundamental. So I think we have a lot of the right pieces already, but we always are working to get better. So it's a lot of things we talk about all the time. We talk about integrity, commitment to doing the right thing, to being honest, to being committed to working in good faith with others across the team, to being a fiduciary for the member. So looking out for their best interest. If you're going to make a mistake, make it in favor of the member.
Correct.
We have these kind of things, these heuristics that help us remember. We talk about operational excellence. So a commitment to doing things really well and being great at what we do. A commitment to detail, a commitment to operating with a high level of trust and supporting viewpoints that may be different than your own, and having an environment where people can speak up. And these are all the things that ensure that the member has a good experience, because if the employee's not paid well, if they're not happy in their work, if they don't feel like they're valued, then the member's certain.
Under the member.
That's right. And so the best way to ensure that the member has a good experience is to ensure the employee is having a good experience. And so that for us is fundamental. And then finally, we care a lot about the community at large, in terms of our role as a corporate member of the community and as a citizen. And we may be a U.S. company, but we have local leadership in every market. And so our employees love to be involved in volunteering and doing different things with food. We have partnerships with food banks, and there's Opendary Crescera and the PriceSmart Foundation. I think that's an important part of our culture too, right? We want to be a part of the community. We want to be giving back. We want to be contributing. So
Who we are.
that's right. So those are, for me, we talk a lot about integrity, excellence, and community. Those are kind of the core values.
Yeah. No, I I appreciate hearing what you're saying. And, I think about culture, and you think about our company, and, without our culture, we really don't have a company.
That's right.
And so it's all about the culture.
Yeah. Companies are kind of like, I think I've said this to you before. I don't want it to sound bad, but companies are kind of like religion a little bit, because there's an element of we have to have this shared belief in something that is kind of ambiguous and abstract, right? So religion's like that too, and there's different kinds of Christians and different kinds of Jews and Muslims and Hindus and so on, but there's different kinds of retail companies too, right? And so PriceSmart is a particular brand of retail. And so we have our shared belief system and way of thinking about what's right and what's wrong, and how do you do the right thing, and how do you do the right thing when no one's looking. So I kind of say, companies are like religion. So we have the PriceSmart one.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I hadn't heard that before, so it's the first time I've heard that. I'll remember that one. So speaking of PriceSmart, you've had it, you've been with the company for quite a while now. I think you've been able to get a good grasp of pretty much all areas of the company, some more than others, but I think you've gotten exposure to most everything over the years. I would say, I guess, what would you say PriceSmart's greatest strengths are?
I thought you were going to ask me a different question, which is, where is my greatest weakness?
No, I wasn't going to go there, but
you can.
I could do that.
So I actually think it's funny. I think one of my areas of least experience is one of PriceSmart's greatest strengths, which is club operations.
Okay.
And the reason I feel okay about that entering the CEO role is because we have such a good team. I have no question that, I just have complete confidence in our operations team and our leadership there, and the pipeline that we have built, that you built, really. I mean, I didn't have anything to do with it, really. So I have total confidence. And I think that's one of our greatest strengths is the way we operate our four walls. Totally. I mean, I frequently tell the team, and I really believe this, it's best in the business. I mean, the standards, what you experience when you walk into a warehouse club, the pride, the attention to detail. And so that is really awesome. And I think the other piece, and our buyers, I think what we're working on too is, having the merchandising team have that same sense of commitment to detail, to pride, to producing great results, being the best merchants, great negotiators, really trying to get the best value for the member. And I think that's the other aspect that we do really well. We have to do really well, because that's really what makes us us.
Who we are, yeah.
Yeah. So those are kind of, I think, the two core pieces. And the last one I would add, because I don't want to leave anybody out, but the last one I think is really important is supply chain. In terms of operating business, there's all the real estate and all this other stuff, but the supply chain is really critical, because those low cost and efficient elements of the supply chain support the pricing, as does the back office. But the supply chain piece is really great as well. And I have a lot of confidence in that leadership group too.
That's great. I appreciate the comments on the operations team, and I give Chris and Tirada and his team just kudos. I mean, he's taken, when I walked away from that and he filled my shoes, he's taken it to the next level. And I really, to your point, when you go in country, you're very motivated to see the passion, to see the standards, to see the commitment.
Oh yeah.
And on the merchandising side.
Yeah, absolutely.
it continues to get better and better and better. And, it's very exciting to see how we continue to improve.
Yeah, and we have relatively new leaders in each of the newer in merchandising. But Chris is newer.
But he's a tenured
Yeah,
operator. He's been doing it
totally.
a
But
long time.
Paul came out of operations, and like those guys, I mean, just the type of intensity that like you kind of get indoctrinated with as you move out of operations, I think is really cool to watch Paul and some of the others. But certainly Paul Kovaleski, our chief merchant, bring that to the merchandising team. Exactly what I want, exactly what we need, because it's a highly competitive, fast-paced business, as you said. And so that's really going to continue to set us up to be doing our best.
And your last comment on the supply chain, when I moved into my new role and I took on the responsibility of overseeing our supply chain, believe me, it was completely new to me. And I will tell you, it's a complex environment. It's like a Rubik's Cube, but it is amazing the thought that takes place behind the scenes and how product moves and some of the strategies that we're now rolling out, to lower our net landed costs. I mean, it's a puzzle. It truly is. And I do feel that we have a great team.
Oh yeah.
And they're opening our eyes to new ways of moving product in more efficient manners,
Absolutely.
more saving manners. So they do play a key role.
They do.
I mean, very, very important.
They do. Absolutely.
Okay. So let's see, what do we got? So we're getting ready we're basically coming down the home stretch. We've got about 6 weeks left of the year. And I guess my question would be, what message would you like to send to all of our team members as we close this fiscal year and as you begin this new chapter as our CEO?
So the first thing I'd like to share with our team is thank you. We have a wonderful team of people that are incredibly committed to what they do. And certainly those, I always say the club manager and the buyer really are the core, most important positions in this company, and then all the teams around that. So thank you to each of our team members for everything you're doing for our members, for our business. My father, I think back about Robert, and he always says he's proud of the team. I'm proud of the team too. So I want to share that message as well. I'm proud of the work you're doing and the results you're putting up. Thanks for your commitment. It's not an easy job. It's not an easy job to run a warehouse club or to run a DC or to work in a warehouse club or a DC or to be a buyer. So this is not an easy business. So I really just appreciate the commitment and commitment to excellence, the commitment to being the best at your job. So I think that's the main message. It's been a great year and we have more coming. So, I just excited to get in this new chair and get to continue the journey with each of our team members. And I'm looking forward to seeing each of you out in the field at each of our warehouse clubs and offices and distribution centers. So for me, I want to be out there. I want to hear from you. That's the other message is I think it's important for those of us in management to be listening to those that are on the front lines, be it operations or buying or supply chain or even in the back office. We got to listen because there's a lot we can learn. So that's another priority of mine. And I want the team to know that that's a priority of mine.
That's great. Those are all great comments. And you're right. It's been, it's a tough job, and our team. I can't be more proud as you are. You can't be, more proud than we are. I mean, every year we seem to. We're in 13 different regions. We're in, regions that have political instability at times, fluctuating currencies. I mean, we're up against a lot of headwinds sometimes. It's rarely at all the stars are aligned. That's very rare. So to see the results that our team continues to deliver, it's very inspiring.
It is.
So
yeah, it's one of the things that adds to why I'm so invigorated each morning to go to work, because we get to do this. I mean, it's killer.
Charged up. We're very
excited. And so last message for the team is there, as John says, there's a bright future ahead. And so I want each individual to feel that there's an opportunity to keep growing with us, because we're really doing our best to keep growing. And so as we grow, our commitment is that we're going to uphold an environment where individuals can grow. It will be sometimes as levels and promotions and so on, but it also will be in skills, in challenging yourself. It could be technical skills. It could be interpersonal skills. So I think, my commitment to you all is, we got to keep growing so that you all can keep growing.
All right. Very well.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving to the personal side, and I guess, we talked about work balance a little earlier in our conversations. So from your perspective, and how do you balance work and your personal life? And speaking of your personal life, what do you enjoy doing outside of work?
Okay. Good question. So I've been, one of my priorities for myself has been to be much more disciplined around how I structure my days. And sometimes they get away from you, but I don't want the job running me. I want to be running the job. So I think it's very important to come in with a plan and to work the plan for myself, right? And so that means being good at boundaries, right? Which is hard to know when to say no, or to know when to put down the computer, to put down the phone or whatever. So I have a few kind of things that I do. One of them is that I try not to get to work if I can help it before 9:30. And it sounds late, but there's a reason for that. I really value my mornings. I usually try to exercise first thing in the morning. And then I try to spend a little time with Ari, with our son. He's just over a year old. If possible, it's really fun to be there and have breakfast with him. So it's little moments like that are really important to me. And if I can take a call on the road or whatever, I'll do it. But I try to not have meetings before 9:30, which can present challenges because we're operating on the East Coast as well. And I'll be flexible where it's these are not firm rules. These are kind of just guidelines that I give myself. I try to end meetings by 2 or 3 in the afternoon because I don't want to be in meetings all day. And I also want to be respectful of the fact that we have people on the East Coast. So, if I have to take meetings early, I'll do it. And, we work around it. And then I have to have time for personal work, like thinking, writing, all the stuff that it's important to do. And I try to be home. I have a couple other kind of dimensions. I try to have dinner with the family, and I want to be there for bath and books, bath, book, bedtime time.
3 Bs.
Exactly. I want to be there for that. And those are everything in between, I kind of make it work. And obviously things come up. Last night I was working on a memo till 10 o'clock and, I didn't put Ari to bed, and it's all good. It's just part of it. But I think having some boundaries, healthy boundaries is good. And then knowing that there's going to be moments and you just got to work through it. So in terms of what I like to do, my main hobby is surfing outside of work. I love to play music. I'm a musician. I actually minored in music in university. So I play the guitar, I sing, I play the banjo. So I do play music these days, mainly to Ari. And he doesn't have a very long attention span, so there's not a lot of, not playing as much as I used to play, but I do enjoy doing that. And I like to run. I'm not a marathon runner, but I have a race coming up in August in Oregon, which is, I don't know why I agreed to do this, but I did, and now it's too late. When it's a relay race from Mount Hood to the coast with a team of friends from USC. I did my undergrad at SC, and so there's a team of us. There's 8 of us or something, and several of them are competitive ultra marathoners. I am not. I am very much a hobbyist. But I think they just like hanging out with me. So they invited me to come. I'm going to be slow. But basically we run 250 miles over the course of 35 hours from Mount Hood to the ocean to Cannon Beach or something.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool.
Be
so
a lot of fun.
That's where I'll be for the Shayla opening. So that's the...
Okay.
That's why I'm not going to be there. And I pushed the team, so hard to work on the opening, and then I forgot I had this thing. So then, they did move it up, but that's the way it goes.
And I think it's important that you, as you entered this role, and again, this is new for you. This role is new, and you're going to be learning as you dive deeper into the role. And there's going to be moments where you're going to be pulling your hair out, saying, wow, this is a bad week or a tough week. But I think again, trying to adhere to that discipline is my advice again. And I've seen CEOs come, and I've seen CEOs go, and I've seen some manage their time very well, and some not do it so well.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because you can see how
it can wear on a person,
really wear a person down. So
exactly,
as long as if you can remain disciplined and stick to that, I think in the end it's going to be better. It's going to be better for everybody.
Totally.
Yourself, your family.
Yeah,
the most important thing. But for those around that you.
Yeah, and you got to set a good example too, which is I don't want anybody else burning themselves out either. I try to leave time to read before bed. I love reading, and it's usually not about business. I like to read about history and about animals and plants and cooking.
I know we were talking about the other day, reading about Chile and oh no, it was I think it was Colombia and the river. Oh yeah, it separates.
That's such a good book. It's called The River of Dreams, Magdalena, The River of Dreams by Wade Davis. And Wade Davis is an anthropologist from Canada, and he's wonderful. I've followed his writing for a while, but I didn't realize he spent like a big chunk of his early career in Colombia, and he is like really tapped into Colombia. And this book really explains a lot about the country. And he goes from the very headwaters of the Magdalena, which is like the Mississippi of Colombia, and he goes all the way down to the coast. And through his journey, he explains the history of the country, which is complicated to say the least. And so I highly recommend the book to those that are curious about Colombia and culture and history. It's great. It's a beautiful story, and he's a good writer.
Very interesting. That before I continue on, and I would just like to take a minute, because I learned this about you, and I didn't know this about you, and I think it might be interesting to share with our team. Before PriceSmart, you taught survivalists. Oh, I don't want to say survivalists, but can you elaborate a little bit on what you used to do before?
Yeah, sure. So when so at USC, I minored in music and I studied public policy.
Okay.
I don't know why. I think the main reason I switched to public policy was I wanted to learn something about solving problems. I felt like everything else I had studied was just issues. I was studying environmental science, or for a period I was studying American studies and ethnicity. And I was just reading about problems, and I wanted to learn about solutions. When I graduated, it was right around the time of the Great Recession. And I applied to, 12 or 15 jobs. I couldn't get a job anywhere. And so I ended up working at a YMCA in Washington State on Orcas Island, living in a tent for like 6 months. I was living in this tent, and between the tent and my truck, at the time I had a Toyota Tacoma. It was great. I loved the Tacoma. And so I lived in this tent, and I taught environmental science to like middle schoolers and from local public schools around the area, that they would come out to the island. And at that time I got like really into sea kayaking, because the San Juan Islands are just like amazing area for kayaking. And so,
Marine life.
oh my God, just in all these islands, and it's just really cool. And I ended up applying for a job at the National Outdoor Leadership School. And Knowles is like an Outward Bound, and it's a leadership school that teaches leadership education through extended expeditions, wilderness expeditions. And so I got their interview is like, it's kind of a weird model to be fair. And I'm not even going to go there, but the interview, you have to pay to get interviewed. And in retrospect, I'm not sure. I don't know, but I did it. And so you go, and I did an expedition with this group there were, I think there were 8 of us interviewees, and they called it an instructor course. And there were 2 instructors. I had a fellow from the States and this other Brazilian fellow, Jim and Fabio, who learned a lot from them. But what we did with this group of 8 of us is we went, the 8 of us in a truck with our kayaks. We drove from Seattle up to the very north end of Vancouver Island to a place called Port Hardy. And then we took the ferry all the way up to Bella Bella, like a couple 100 miles, 200 something miles. And then over the course of a month, we paddled back to Port Hardy. It was like in April in British Columbia, and it was brutal. It was brutal. I mean, I got an issue with I picked up an issue called trench foot on that trip, which was like a non-freezing cold injury on my feet because of the wetness and just all the dampness and weather and whatever. So after that, they hired me, and I thought I had done a bad job. I was very, young guy. It was like all women on the trip and me and one other dude. And I was like, there's no way they're going to hire me. And they did. And they sent me right up to Alaska, like within a few weeks of that trip. And I ended up working for them for 4 years, doing hiking and sea kayaking in Alaska and Mexico, mainly with college students, but also with adults and some high school kids too. And so the deal was, you go out for 3 or 4 weeks with a group, and sometimes you're self-supported and other times there'd be re-rations. But through the experience, you're teaching about communication and feedback and how to lead a group and how to assess risk and how to resolve conflict and so on and so forth. So there's this really interesting classroom. And what's interesting about their curriculum is that they start like very hands-on. And then through the course, you kind of like start handing off more and more responsibility to the students. And ideally, by the end of the course, the students are traveling on their own or being shadowed from a distance, and you're just silent. And so there are a lot of experiences where like we would park the kayaks and they wanted to set up camp and below the high tide line, they like misread the line, and the tide would come up and their tents would get swamped, and you have to just be like, because you can't say anything. And so we had wild experiences like that. So it was a beautiful time. And at some point, Robert was like, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, you're," and that's when we got to talking, and decided to decided to go back to school and got a master's in international affairs and economics from UCSD, and then came to work for Lupita while I was in school. And that's how it kind of got back.
No, I you shared some of those stories with me in the past, and I admire and respect them. I think because it is you're learning to be a leader. I mean, that is, I think a great environment to be a teacher, and which in a sense is being a leader.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something. I think that I did learn a lot about tolerance for adversity and uncertainty, and how to deal with communication, and how to have good, what we would call expedition behavior, which really just translates to like how to be like a good team member. So I learned a lot then, but I can tell you that the stakes at a business like PriceSmart and the lives that we impact and the level that it's just very different. And so what I found is like the itch that I was scratching by doing those things, like it's like 100x better working in the company, because the impact is so much more significant and so much more lasting and so much more meaningful. So I think like there's like this, I have probably the most unusual trajectory at PriceSmart. And that's fine. I think it's all good. It's my story, and so I would never trade those experiences for sure.
I'm envious a little bit. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Well, maybe if we 2x our sales, we'll go on
well, let's try it. Let's shoot for that. That could be a goal of ours.
I'm up for it.
Okay. So, getting back to the script here. So if you could go back and give advice to your younger self when you first joined the company, what would you say?
One of the first things I did was working on PriceSmart.com and like merchandising and buying products, and I remember Robert would like pressure me so hard. He would push me on the comp shops. Comp shop, are you comp shopping? Are you comp shopping? What's your price point? And I would be like, dude, give it a break. Let us just do our thing. And now in retrospect, it's like, oh my God, it's so important. So I think there's just so much wisdom, and I'm starting now, having been working with Robert much more closely the last few years. There's just like, at the time, I don't think especially when I first started, I appreciated the depth of his knowledge and experience and perspective, and just like the dimensions of his view of things. And I have a very different appreciation for that now. And I don't think I really did then. And I think it was fine. But if I was going to tell myself something, would be like, give him a chance. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I might say is, don't stress about small things. It's just kind of like, keep your eye on the big picture, which I think is easy being on like a very specific team, working on a project that was like getting no love. It was like the abandoned, PriceSmart.com back then. And
back then, yeah, you're right.
And so
that's good. That's good. No, it's good response.
But the comp shops matters a lot.
It's part of the detail.
That's right. I mean, retail is detail,
and it's part of the detail. It's critical.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. What has been one of the most meaningful learning experiences that you have had as a leader, either within or outside of PriceSmart? If there's anything that resonates or sticks out.
I think making mistakes and having to own those and talk to the team about, I can think of some at Knowles, particularly like either, getting lost or having to potentially camp without water. Like I can think about, I was with a group in Mexico hiking in the mountains there, and this mountain range is like notorious because the rocks there are very porous. So it's hard to find standing water. And so it can be very stressful to be like, all right, we may have to camp without water tonight. So, ration your water and we'll find it soon enough. Don't worry, and having to be the bearer of bad news. And now I'm thinking now about some experiences. I can't get into details now, but I think like, don't BS with the team. Like just be honest about what's going on, because they're going to see right through it. So obviously maybe in certain moments you can't share everything, but like, I think honesty and transparency matters a ton in leadership.
Absolutely.
And so that's probably the most important thing. And either, it could be in the context of a wilderness expedition or in the context of a company, but I think just be honest with people.
That's great. No, that's great advice. It truly is. And I totally agree. So, moving on, I think as we're moving into the final reflections and the message to the team. So I'm going to ask you the question that you always close the podcast with.
Mm-hmm.
which we were referring to earlier, which you said is a tough question.
It is a tough question.
What is something you've learned from someone on your team this year that had a positive impact on you?
Well, there's one I shared some episodes ago, I believe, or it was either, I'm getting it all mixed up, it was either on an episode or something, but there's something I learned from you, particularly I admire your ability to keep learning and evolving and your openness to like just seeing things a different perspective. I anchor pretty quick sometimes on a decision. And so I've been kind of trying to work on like, don't entrench yourself too fast. Like give it a chance, like think about it, So that's one element that I really admire about it. And I've watched you evolve, John, and have you stepped into this role and from being EVP of operations now and having a president view, very different. And you've really evolved in a way that's really wonderful. And so I've learned a lot watching and being able to interact with you, work together. And so, I really value that working relationship that we have. The other one I would say, I'm trying to think about how to voice this the right way, but I come off as like confident pretty frequently. I'd say like usually I present as confident when I'm with the group and everything, but like there certainly are insecurities too.
Okay.
And I think like entering this role and thinking about, well, I've only worked at the company 10 years. A lot of people worked at the company 30 or 40 years, or, I'm in my late 30s. A lot of our leaders are in their 50s and 60s. So I'm thinking like there's all these kind of like self-doubt and things that can set in. And I remember we were doing a team offsite some months ago, and I had a really good heart-to-heart with one of our fellow executives on our team, and kind of just talking. And what occurred to me was like, we're all learning and doing our best all the time. And there's so many things I bring to the table that are different from the rest of our team members, and it's really a team sport. And so, the most important thing, and what this individual shared with me is like, just understand your blind spots, understand the things you need to work on, understand what you know and what you don't know, and then believe in yourself at the end of the day, have conviction. And so there's just like, that's like a constant work for me in this role is like, and I think it can happen across roles is, it's easy to have self-doubt and feelings that set in around one's capabilities or is this the right decision or whatever, and you got to do your best with the right reasons and fundamental behind it. And if you do your best, make a decision. If it's not the right decision, you can pivot, and just kind of roll with it.
And we're human, and
right.
We're going to make mistakes.
Exactly.
And to your point earlier, you own up, you learn, and you move on.
That's right.
So that's it. There's some good comments. So you said earlier when we began this that the 1 hour goes quickly, and I was just looking at the clock there, and I'm like, wow, you're right.
Yeah.
It's almost 56 minutes at this point.
I know, it goes quickly.
It really does. And I want to thank you very much for your candid transparency and your answers to these questions. And as I reflect on kind of where we are, I made a couple comments to myself earlier today, and to you mentioned this, early on in the beginning of our conversation. Next year we will experience in October, our 30th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And quite honestly, I don't think a lot of us that were at that point in time or came on shortly after that point in time really would have believed that 30 years later we would be here today, but we are. And we've done the team has done an extremely good job to take PriceSmart from that one club in Los Pueblos, Panama, to where we are today and the presence that we have in our markets today. And again, it's ordinary people doing extraordinary things day in and day out. And, our job is to really to be humble and I pride myself on servant leadership. And I really, how can we, best, support our teams that are out there really day in, day out, making the difference for us. So here we are though, 30 years later. And to your point, I think the best years are yet to be had. And I really feel we're on the precipice of a great new, I don't want to say a new beginning, but it's just transition. And your dad's handing, the keys over to yourself and you're taking the helm. You've got a great team, but we have a great business plan ahead of ourselves, which you've spearheaded and challenged the group on. And I think that, for our listeners today, the future looks great. It truly looks great. I mean, we have an aggressive growth plan for the next 5 years. I'm not going to go into too much details, but to your point earlier about the opportunities that this growth will provide to our people, for them to personally grow, I think it's we're just in a great spot right now, and I really feel that the timing is great for yourself to assume this role, and you have a team that's really supportive and 100% behind you, and we're going to all work together to achieve our 5-year plan. So I want to say thank you very much for your time, David. And again, I personally, you and I have had the chance to interact more over the last year than probably we ever have. And I really feel we formed a great relationship out of respect for one another. And, I'm here to help you, and I know you're here to help me as well. So
That's right. Thank you,
yeah,
John. Those are
forward to it.
I totally agree with your comments. And the servant leadership piece is so critical. And, setting that example, which you and the folks that work on with your areas, and I think we do a good job of setting that example, but it takes work, right? You got to just kind of stick with it and stay committed to it. But I appreciate that. And we're going to have learnings, and we're going to have knocks along the way. But we got to keep our eye on the ball, and stay focused, have fun. And, I'm looking forward to the next chapter for sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
So with that, it's weird being on the other side, honestly, but I mean, it's fun. I appreciate having the platform to share a little bit. So I hope for all of the listeners, employees, and members and others that are listening, thank you so much for joining us at the club today, throughout the last season. It's fun to have you. For me, it was like I wouldn't say a dream, but I'd say it was an idea that I came up with maybe a year and a half ago to do a podcast for PriceSmart. And I was talking with a friend of a friend who was in New York, having some meetings, talking to this guy at the end of the day, saying, I don't know how we're going to reach employees and how we're going to do different things. And I don't know, I love podcasts. Could we do one? He's like, just start one, man. It's not that hard. Just start one. You have people that have video, audio. I mean, just do it. And here we are. So we had 12 episodes, I guess. And so feel really grateful to get to have done this, and then we'll keep it going. So thanks for joining us. Don't forget to comment, to follow us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
Take care.